I'm pausing because there's some elements that we don't want to spoil for people that you just sort of have to experience when you watch it.
Did I have any types in mind when I was thinking about the roles? Yeah, of course I did. I mean, I think as a writer, you sort of like conjure these characters, and they're so alive in your brain that they have, their own personalities. And Ray was just like this perfect fit for the character of Aaron. Gaffigan was an easy choice as well. I think it was like, to me, it was sort of like this range and this sort of honesty that I always saw from Ray's performances through everything you've done, which is 1,000 million billion things. And it was just sort of so natural. I remember like talking to you and you just got it. Like you just got the character. We had like a call and it was just sort of like, oh, this is really right. Like you just had the right take on everything. And so, yeah, it was a very like natural. Yeah? What'd you think in that call? You were like, I gotta go.
I definitely was not like, oh, I nailed that.
Oh, really? Oh,
No.
I don't think it's about, well.
No. But you're right. It didn't feel like an audition. We had a very beautiful, heartfelt conversation about the script, but also about all of the implications of this kind of love story that becomes a much bigger exploration, I think, of chasing your dreams and a life that's more than the summary of memories. And what are memories? I mean, it just kept going and going and going. And the deeper it got, the more I was like, okay, I have to play this role. Have to.
Yeah. So Jim Gaffigan plays this like sort of wannabe children's science TV show host. Not even wannabe, just like failing basically. He's just not doing very well.
He's doing it.
He's doing it, but in his garage. Yeah. You know what I mean? And so there is like that, in that kind of like Bill Nye the Science Guy way, like there is a kind of like, it's very like elementary or sort of innocent, I guess.
Yeah.
Like the science aspect is very innocent. And I think that's like, it all comes back around to his character because like you
it's
can
scrappy.
see, yeah, it's scrappy. You can see like he built these things.
Right.
He hung that thing. He, you know what I mean? Like made that spaceship in the background, things like that. Which I think is like, oh wow, this guy's like dedicated. Do you know what I mean? Like he has this kind of like inner dream going on that's very childlike,
Yes.
And that pays off, later. But
there's this dynamic in it where there is a relationship that you're seeing evolve and devolve in some cases, but you're also getting a sense that there are different facets to who remembers this moment. And I think that you did a really great job in writing and directing that. There is I'm pausing because there's some elements that we don't want to spoil for people that you just sort of have to experience when you watch it, as far as the non-linear version of the narrative. But there is always a sense in the scenes that every relationship has different points of view, and that also you have different points of view about yourself and how people see you and how you see yourself, and that loved ones are seeing the sort of most private you. And I enjoyed playing that up with Jim, and I know he did as well. Is like we constantly had these scenes where your character feels seen by the other person, whether that's what you wanted to see in that moment or not. I suppose as far as is there a familiarity with working with comedians, they're all very different. It's not a monolith, but I would say that Jim and Bob and Whitney all share a darker intellect and exploration of things off camera that they're constantly exploring that allows them to do their fast-paced wit, whether it's acerbic or jovial or comedic. They are all very complex thinkers, which makes them all capable of playing subtext really well, which is something that I look for in a scene of like, well, what's not being said? What's being thought but spoken differently?
Well, I think comedians too, like there's like, comedy is harder. Like it's this like, everybody sort of knows it in the industry that like comedy is much harder to direct, to act, everything. But it's also like, comedians can just sort of do it all. Like I think most people think, oh, it's sort of like a category or something like that, but it's really not. Like I think Jim's like super dynamic in this way of like being able to, and he plays two characters in the movie.
Yep.
With wig and makeup and stuff like that. And knocks both of them out of the park and is like completely unrecognizable as the other character.
Yeah. He did a phenomenal job, and his range is great. I'm excited for anybody who doesn't know that he has that range. And in that way, it would be similar to Bob in that, I don't think people were aware of the range in both of those gentlemen's talent. And Jim, you're right, he's playing two different characters, and he has the ability to see what is darkly comedic in the scene while playing the natural reality of it as well. So it was fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think this sort of like genre balance that's going on between the drama, the comedy, and the sci-fi aspects, it's like, you would think that I thought about it, but I didn't. It's just like, you just write the story and it is sort of what it is. I think, you know, these elements just kind of came about because they're sort of a part of me and what I want to say and sort of the work itself. It just sort of comes like, not naturally, but just like organically from, you know, the story itself. I love like a little sprinkle of sci-fi, you know, and a little sprinkle of comedy. I mean, really at its heart, it's a dramatic love story, you know, between this husband and wife over the course of time. These kind of other elements, I think, kind of add there's some sort of like storybook quality to the movie, and I think it kind of comes back around in the end. We'll say, to this storybook quality more than you might think, which is kind of exciting. But yeah, I wouldn't say it was like overly conscious in terms of.
But what about I was talking to Molly. What's Molly's last name? The art director.
Molly Wartell.
Yes, Molly Wartell, who's brilliant, and the decision to make the sci-fi elements lo-fi sci-fi.
Yeah, lo-fi.
As opposed to like CGI or whatever.
It's definitely DIY sci-fi.
Yes, and it was very purposeful, and everything has a human touch to it. That nothing is. And for me, I kept wondering, like, I wonder what kind of conversations Colin had with Molly, because the sci-fi element, instead of creating distance, I thought actually created more heart.